Do vintage components really make a pedal sound better? Well, today we're going to find out. Hello people, Joe from Hello Side Effects here. Welcome to today's video. In today's video, I'm going to be building two Klon Centaur clones. One with awesome vintage and Mojo components and another with the standard kit. And we're going to pit them head to head to see which sounds better. Cheers. Hopefully you've all watched my previous Klon build. So it's a Klon kit build and it turned out pretty well. I used some vintage diodes and stuff. It was nice. However, it raised the question, what is better, the regular kit build or boutique old components? So in this episode, I'm going to build two. I'm going to build this one here using as many old resistors and capacitors as I can and then supplement them with the kit. And I'm also going to build yet another one here, just bog standard, to spec, exactly how it would be if you were to buy the kit yourself. And then we're going to pit them against each other and see what's better, boutique or standard. All of our sockets are now in place. We've got three different op amps on this Klon build. Now, full disclosure, I come up with this idea for this pedal a while ago when someone challenged me on whether diodes make a difference or not, which is why this one is going to have some Mullard OA70 diodes alongside some of my preferred 2N7007 diodes and switchable, so I can switch them in and out the circuit just to see if the diodes make a difference. Anyway, so I come up with this idea. I put together some resistors and capacitors that I thought would work. However, the problem is this was some time ago and I can't remember what I've put together. So what I'm going to do, professionally as I like, I'm going to go through this pile and see what I can get where, because I'm not even sure if they're all from this. But I'm going to put what resistors I can get in and then I'll backfill with the ones that come with the kit as much as I can. Okay, so that's all of the resistors now backfilled. As you can see, I've got a mix of some boutique components that I had to stand up to fit them in, and also some of the smaller quarter watt resistors that come with the kit. Now onto the capacitors. So I've got a ton of these 1 microfarad caps. You know, there's some non-polar electrolytics, some mylar film, some old Siemens caps. Great. I'm going to put them to one side because they're really big and I may have to run wires off board, and you can see there's like a bank of 1UF caps there. There's no way that I'm going to be able to fit all of them in there, so I might have to run them off the board and take up the space of the battery. Get in. I love it when you don't need a battery. So we'll come back to them, and then we've got these which are firstly this 470 PF silver mica cap. Silver mica, no, mylar film, not sure. I think it's silver mica, if I remember rightly. I did buy this for an amplifier. So 470 ohm, where is that?
5 hours later.
I'll tell you what I've done here by the look of it. I've put this cap in because it can take the place of 390p. So instead of 390 PF, looks like I'm going to put in a 470 PF. That's definitely going to change the tone a little bit. So there's that in there. Now also we've got 273, which is this one. Which is 27 NF. So there's there. You can't have a boutique build without putting in one of these tropical fish caps. I know how much people love me using them. At least this isn't going into a cheap pedal, it's going in an actual Klon clone. An actual Klon clone, it's just a Klon clone. Can you believe we got monetized on YouTube? Thank you so much to everyone who's watched videos, liked and subscribed. If you want to support the channel further, we have caps available, t-shirts available, including our new Wet the Tip t-shirt with some cool components in. So there we go, we've got that there. Right, now why did I put you in? crazy. I'm just trying to remember exactly what I put where and for what. We put that to one side. I'll solder these in while I'm here, and then we'll get on to using the actual caps that come with the kit. Obviously not the 1UF ones, because I'm going to use my boutique variants. Bit too much solder on that joint there. And there we are. I'm going to go ahead and backfill with some of the stuff from in here. There we have all of our other capacitors backfilled. I've actually mixed two together to make one value here. Next, I'm going to, before I move on to the larger vintage caps, I'm going to go ahead and put in the 12 volt Zener diodes and the two 1N4001 diodes over here. Then we'll move on to adding in wires or adding in our large capacitors. That's our diodes now in place. You have to be careful with these to make sure they're pointing in the right direction, but this kit comes really well marked up. Okay, so now it's time for the fun bit, the stupid size caps. Right. Firstly, there's going to be three approaches to this. The first one is I'm going to try and mount some of these on the top. Just squeeze them in there, probably just this one really. And then bend the legs so then it fits in there. The next type, these flatter style, I'm going to actually stick them to the bottom of the board and run the leads to the connections, bend the leads to the connections, and because they're lower profile than my pots, I know that they're going to fit in, because obviously the pot sits on the bottom of the board too. So that's a good thing. And then also these ones, which, you know, you don't want to be hiding these vintage Siemens caps anywhere. So I'm going to put these where the battery would be, or at the front of the pedal here, and I'm going to run wires over to these. So there's a three-pronged approach here. There's seven caps in total. So I'm going to see which ones I can get where. Let's start off by doing this end one here, and I am going to do that by adding this one to the top of the board. Now, how I like to do it, this is a non-polar cap, so all of these are non-polar. You don't have to think about which way round they go in. I'm going to bend the legs straight down, and then I'm also going to bend them back on themselves, keeping them as close to the body as I can. It doesn't matter if they foul the body, because the body is in fact insulated with, that's what the colour is, and the markings on it, they're all like a heat shrink wrap. Now I've purposely put it further over this way, the two legs, so then it makes the cap sit more this way, because there isn't that much space. So we get them in there. Now I don't want to situate it too low to the body, because I may not be able to get in and add wires to extend that cap out, but you know, that'll do. Now let's get one of them soldered in. The reason why I'm soldering one first and not both of them together is because once one's in, it's like definitely in there, and now I can straighten the cap up and bend it until I'm happy that way that it looks straight, and this way that it looks straight. Now I'm content with that, I can go ahead and solder the other side in. It doesn't really matter if they're straight, but it only takes an extra second to make sure that it is, so why not? Right, now the cap underneath it that we couldn't see, obviously I'm not going to be able to fit another capacitor in there. I'm going to use the runner wire method. So I'm going to run two wires. I'll strip them, well, hey, and then tin both of them. I always like to tin the stranded wire, but when I'm using like solid core wire, I never do. And the reason why I tin it is because then it won't break apart on its way, and you don't end up with like a little leg sticking out from the wire that inadvertently touches something and then causes a problem further down the way, like short out on something else. It's just easier to manage. And then when you actually come to solder, the tinned wire takes the solder much better because there's already solder there. Right, now this is quite important because there's going to be a lot of wires coming out of this board because there's a lot of these caps that I'm going to mount off board. It's advisable that you get a little bit of heat shrink. It doesn't take much. And put it round both of them to keep them together so you know that that belongs to this cap. That way I'm less likely to connect one wire from this connection and one wire from that connection together and, you know, create something that doesn't work. And as I know that they are going to be coming over this way off the board, I know I can just put that there, heat shrink it on, and once this is all together I should know that them two wires go together. Now, I haven't heat shrinked that very well, have I? Well done, Joe. There we go. Now the last way of connecting to the board is, as I previously mentioned, I'm going to mount some caps underneath the board. Now, how to do that? Here's our, well, first things first, I know that our pots are going to go in here. So I want to try and avoid being too close to them. So I'm going to probably use these two here. So I'm going to mount one here, one cap here, and bend to meet them two holes, and then maybe one cap here and bend to meet them two holes. That should be okay. Yeah. So I'll be fitting these two in with these style capacitors. Now before I do any gluing whatsoever or any sticking down, just bend the legs into shape. The leg should give it a good mechanical connection, so we shouldn't have too much trouble with the cap moving around, not like that anyway. Oh, another work phone call, excuse me. Right, so for fitting this in, what I've done is I've just manipulated the legs round into a shape so then they'll go in the two relevant holes for this cap, like so, and then the cap can sit up against the body. Now even with the rubber pad, or the pad underneath, it's still going to sit below, I hope, the level of the pots. Actually don't know if it will now. Let's see. Yeah, it will. It'll sit below the level of the pots anyway. So all I do is I put one of these sticky foam pads on the bottom. You know, there's going to be no stress on this cap. It's held in with solder, and the foam pad is just literally to hold it in place. And as you can see, the legs aren't fouling anywhere on the bottom of the board. If you're worried about that, you could just, you know, heat shrink them or put some of the sheathing off a normal wire over the top. But I'm not that worried about that. And all I'm going to do is just solder them in place. Wet the tip, way. And then if I just snip the excess off, not as easy to do because there's 1,001 components around it, but doesn't matter. There you go, and that's how I'm going to mount them to the bottom of the board. So I'm either going to run cables, mount them inside the enclosure, mount them to the board as per normal, or mount them underneath. I'm going to crack on and get the rest of them in there. That's all of our wires fitted in for our caps that are going to be mounted off board. I put 2 on the bottom there, 3 are going to be mounted off board. I managed to squeeze 2 on the top. So we've got 3 sets of wires here, and then I've also put in a set of wires that's going to run to our switch. Our switch, if I can keep hold of it, for our switchable diodes. So we can switch the clipping from germanium to silicon and no clipping, which is obviously the best clipping option. Okay, now we're cooking with gas. I've got all of the cables added in. So we've got our 9-volt jack, our input and output jacks. And then of course over here we've got our 3-pole double throw. Although you could get away with a 2-pole double throw on here, but we've got our stomp switch connections over here, and then underneath I've added in our pots, one of which is a dual pot. Get in. Now next step is to add all this into the enclosure and add in our capacitors. So this is the enclosure. I've added in Hello Sailor effects on there, of course I have, and I've given it a nitro top coat. And also our centaur has got a nice little anchor tattoo on his arse, why not? Now, before I put this in, and I've made this mistake a few times before, so I'll help you out. These pots have like a little locating pin. It's used for some circuits where they'll, you know, locate into a hole on the enclosure. Well, ours doesn't have that, and it just makes the whole thing sit at a funny angle. Your knobs sit at a funny angle. So I'm going to take my snips and just clip that off like that. Funnily enough, if you fancy getting yourself a pair of these Nipex snips, which are, in my opinion, the best snips in the world, thank you Marcus Reeves again for introducing me to these. It did actually change my life. Or if you fancy something like one of these solder dispensers, or even a Hakko soldering iron. Yes, Hakko, the best soldering iron in the world. They're all linked below in my description. I do get a little affiliate kickback from that. I think I've not actually had a kickback from anything yet. But now that I'm monetized, I am an affiliate. So there you go. You too can snip your pots with a set of Nipex snips. Get on. And the only thing that could have made that better is if when I went to snip, it snapped. And I look like a right... Anyway. Yeah, so if you want them, check out the links in the comments, in my description below. It is an Amazon affiliates link. Cheers. Let's get them in. So, with this, I have shown before on a previous video. Before you can add this in here, you need to add in your LED. Now it comes ready made up in this kit. So I'm going to unscrew it, feed it through, and then screw this back on so our LED is in place. This isn't normally how I do my LEDs. I like to use epoxy and some other bits and bobs on it, but there we go. Now, there's a way of positioning this. Your longer lead is your live and your shorter lead is your earth. Now to get this right, we have our instructions. I haven't got these out this time, but I have done a previous build where you can see which way round it goes. If we look here at the LED, we can see, I mean, I don't know if you can see that on there, but our LED, there's two halves. The live side has like a line coming off on the inside of the LED. I can see it from here, but you probably can't see it on the camera, which means that the live is this side here. And funnily enough, if we follow this trace down on a drawing, we can see it leads to this component here, which I'm going to guess is probably the current limiting LED resistor, current limiting resistor, which would be somewhere over here on this, by the look of it. Yeah, no, over here on this. It's one of these two. Anyway, it comes over there, and the other side of it looks like it attaches to ground. So the flat side is going to be the short side. That's what I'm saying. So if this goes in that way round, it means the flat side is outboard. So I want to orientate this round so that then our shorter side is outboard. Now what you can also do, if you want to go just a little bit further, is just take a small length, doesn't have to be much, of sheathing off your wire and put it over the live side. Make sure, now you won't see this on camera, but make sure that there's no little strands left in there, because if that strand was poking out, it could touch the earth and short it out, or touch the negative side, sorry, and short it out. But if I put the sheaver over the live side, and for some reason these do come into contact with each other at some point down there, the length of their leg, that sheave will actually just stop them from touching. So what I'm going to do is try and skewer this circuit onto the LED, which is difficult because you've got to get the pots into. What you can't see here is that I have my tongue sticking out like I'm drawing, like I'm a child drawing, trying to get this in. I don't know why the tongue makes it easier, but there you go. There we are. Right. Once that's in, I can pull all my wires out out the way, push my my pots right the way down. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to just get some washers and not for dropping on the floor, I'm not. Some washers and nuts on here, so then it can't come undone. And my LED will be locked in place, which is fantastic. Thought I'd lost the last washer then, that would have been interesting. Right, now while we have them locked in place, I'm just going to go ahead and solder the two LED connections. That solder joint's not very good, Joe, well done. Right, so we're on to this switch. And I've got these diodes here, so I've got some vintage Mullard OR70 germanium diodes, and I've also got some of my 2N4007 power diodes. Our switch is going to fit through a hole that I drilled in the enclosure here. Great. But before we do that, I like to put the diodes in place. So I'll put the switch up here and we'll go from there. Now, it's going to be a bit easier to do these ones first because both the legs are long, and of course the Mullard diodes are really fragile and the legs are at different lengths, which is fun. So what we want is our diodes facing in opposite directions, because they are in fact going to clip a different half of the circuit. So I've got the cathode this side and the cathode this side, so they'll clip each half of the circuit. Now for these ones, all I'm going to do is just push the leg down and then wrap it round, and you'll get that sort of feature there. And same again, the top leg, I'm just going to push it down and then wrap it round, and that should make it, when I solder them together, that should make it round about the right width to probably get in there and sit there without causing us too much hassle. So let's get them in there. Get these ones as close to the body as I can because they can sit in a lower portion, and then they'll give space for the germanium ones to sit a bit further away. So with any luck they'll sit below the switch. And also if anyone opens up the enclosure, the germanium ones won't be hidden, they'll be able to see them. Don't forget to give these connections here to solder. Careful though, because both the switch and the diodes are fragile this time. There's one half done. Now this half is going to be a bit more difficult. Well, Great England, because these are real fragile. I've reclaimed them from old radios when I've been doing the Roberts radios. Check the link above if I remember to put it into my Roberts radio to Ruby amp conversion or project. So these are what come out of them. And what I'm going to try and do is, if I put one in that way and then the other one in the other, there, we want to go the other way, don't we? Why am I finding that so difficult that way? Yeah. That one in that way. We should be. That's frustrating. The short legs were both at different ends. Thought I was going to be able to spread them out, but there you go. There we are. Hopefully there's enough room in the enclosure for these. If not, I'm going to have to bend them to make them fit in. I'd rather not do that because they are quite fragile. Right, now this switch has got a center position, so when I click it that way, it will select these diodes. We'll have germanium symmetrical. Center position is no diodes, and in that way gives us our symmetrical silicon. And this fits in the enclosure over here. There is, if I put it that way around, you can see both. Two things really. I don't like that it clicks forward to back. That annoys me a little bit. But you can see both of the germanium diodes, and you can see the Muller badge, which I like, and it fits in. So that way around we go. Over to the switch, and I'm going to leave this wall. I nearly said bulkhead then, as if I'm on a ship. I'll leave this wall free because that's where I'm going to mount these. Our switch is now fitted and wired up. I've also went ahead and fitted the 3-pole double throw jack, 9-volt jack, and then also, because this is the upgraded version, right, I've put some of my Switchcraft style skeleton jacks in there. Are they called skeleton jacks? Don't know what they're called. Some Switchcraft style jacks in there instead of the ones that come with it. Not that there's anything wrong with them, I just prefer these more. Right, next I'm going to wire up all of these, the input and output jacks, the DC jack, and our 3-pole double throw switch. And then after that, we'll go ahead and start work on our caps. Most of our wires now in place. Our switch is wired up, all of our jacks, and I've also fitted our large caps to the outside of the enclosure. I've just used dab of glue and a sticky pad. Next is going to be to run our 3 different cap wires to these, and then we're done really. And that's everything wired up now, including our large caps. Why not? And all of our coloured zip ties, cable ties are in place. Cheers, Glenn, I know you love it. What do we think of this build? Let me know in the comments. I'm just going to go ahead and add in, the knobs, and of course add the bass, give it a sign, and then we'll go on to a sound sample. In the sound sample, you're going to see this pedal in all 3 modes compared against a standard build that just has vintage germanium diodes. Now that we've built this pedal, it's time to test it against the standard version. I'd love to know in the comments what you prefer. Do you prefer the basic kit, or do you like the one with all the Mojo components in? If you like that video where we built a Klon Centaur clone and pitted it against the standard version, you're going to love this video where I take you through a whole step-by-step guide on how to build this Klon Centaur kit, including using the diagrams.